In the beginning, we noticed the animals were restless. Then we started seeing some shadows, some shouting, cursing, until we saw something over there.
Do you think werewolves are real?
I took part in a werewolf hunt in Varzea Paulista. Chiquinho, here's the thing. It's a story, a beautiful city there in Minas, in the south of Minas, called Borda da Mata. A Portuguese man bursts into the sacristy, desperate, looking for Father Sintra, until the Portuguese man's daughter, who was 14 years old, opens the door. The devil enters and Sintra challenges Chiquinho to kiss his crucifix. When Chiquinho puts it in his mouth, it burns him. The girl Isildinha. It's incredible when they open Isildinha's grave to send her there.
There to Portugal.
Portugal. Her body is preserved, her body is incorrupt.
This young man here, this boy here.
Antonio Marcelino, his nickname is Menino da Tábua.
I'd love to see a ghost.
I want to see a ghost, but it depends.
If it's Chiquinho,
No, not Chiquinho, for God's sake, but I had a problem with Chiquinho.
You like him, right? Do you find it amusing to tempt fate, walk among graves, and feel their cold gaze on you?
Do people like it? Man, the crowd is really cool, but the one talking to me,
Hey, Thiago, you jerk. You've known me a long time. I'm Chiquinho, remember? I came for you.
Chiquinho. Impossible, you were exorcised in Borda da Mata.
That's what they say. Let's go, Thiago, Haunted One. I'm here for you.
Stay away, devil, I'm getting my cross. St. Francis.
That one doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Enough stalling. Let's go. I came to get you, man.
Okay, just say it. Where do you want to go?
Do you see that portal over there? You just have to go through it.
Thiago's here. Can I start? You can start.
Man,
What is it?
pretty early.
I was about to start working on the hair here. It's usually pretty thin, right? Thanks. Why do you look scared?
I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later.
Don't you want to talk?
Let's see. Let's start the conversation. If I tell you, I don't know if you'll believe me.
Were you at the cemetery?
Of course.
Is there any day you don't go to the cemetery?
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
But you go there very often.
Very often.
I have it here. You sent it, right?
Can I put my cap back on?
For God's sake, of course. You're at home. I have 3 of your books here.
Wow, that's cool.
I was going to ask you, can I let my 12 and 13-year-old kids read them or not?
Yes, 12 or 13 can.
Can they read Lobisomum?
Yes, they can.
There's Meet the Werewolf from Your Neighborhood and Miracle Workers of the Cemetery of the City of Sao Paulo.
That's right.
And Hauntings of Campinas.
These 3 books, each one has a sign actually, right? Hauntings of Campinas. After I understood a bit what I was doing, that it was kind of a journey. I won't say a spiritual journey, but a therapeutic journey, I think. Because in the first book, I kind of follow the path of Gilberto Freire in Hauntings of Old Recife. I really like the parallelism.
Does your book have sociology?
I don't know. I'm not saying that I tried to follow his paths, because this book, it was really inspired by Hauntings of Old Recife by Gilberto Freire, because he guides us a path that draws a parallel between the supernatural stories of the cities and the important events, especially, of course, traumas, major hardships, but above all, events that inevitably ended up influencing the social and urban development of the cities.
Your work is not sociology.
No,
It's not. Psychology?
no,
Is there nothing about mediumship?
no.
What is it then, cemeteriology?
I don't think so. I think actually I'm an avid adventurer in this search for enchantment in our lives.
Seriously?
And I think all of this is connected much more. We can call it whatever we want depending on the perspective. So we can say that a werewolf story is just a fairy tale, a poorly explained experience from our ancestors, as often happens. Or we can understand it from a translation.
That comes from werewolf.
Isn't it werewolf? Werewolf?
How do you translate werewolf?
Werewolf. I think that werewolf is a specific kind of term for lobisomem because traditionally people also say wolfman. So I think our lobisomem is closer to wolfman than to werewolf. I believe it's more connected to the idea of a mythical wolf than necessarily to the transformation of a man into a werewolf.
Because when I went to write the book The First Immortal, I started researching images of humans and animals mixed together, as well as mythical animals. I discovered the werewolf while researching the Lion Man, the oldest known sculpture located in Germany. And it's striking to discover that this is something very ancient.
It's millennial.
Of course. Can you tell, were you able to identify when the werewolf comes from? The idea of the werewolf?
Our werewolf, I believe so. I think we have two origins for the werewolf. One is European, the myth of Lycaon, who is transformed into a wolf by Zeus after repeatedly breaking the divine law of hospitality.
Greek mythology.
Totally. And our other werewolf comes from southern Brazil, from contact with Guarani culture, which is very Paraguayan, which is Luizon, who is the seventh son of Itaú and Querana, an entire offspring cursed by JC. And he is a canid. Dark black fur. He has gills, which is something unusual for canids.
As if he were a sea creature.
Exactly, but he's not. He's just a dog.
Now, are you telling me there's a Paraguayan werewolf?
Not Paraguayan, it's worse. And that's crucial even for my search for the things I found about a fundamental aspect of the werewolf, which is its signature. Like a masculine gender. Luizon, for example, he has a penis. The tapir's phallus is large.
I've never looked at a tapir's phallus.
I pursued it specifically due to Luizon's description and had to research it.
Tapirs have a large phallus.
They really do. They're very big. So this aspect of gender and the lycanthrope is decisive in the conception of the werewolf archetype.
Is that sexual?
I think so. There are two aspects, the masculine gender and its constant connection to death. And death through a beastly behavior, which then brings us to the myth of Lycaon.
Doesn't that just come down to priapism?
No, because they're very much alive, right? They're always very alive.
Luison is Luison.
He's Paraguayan?
He's the Paraguayan werewolf.
He's a Paraguayan werewolf.
And is he real?
He's real, nothing fake about it. Paraguay has good things too.
Did this myth reach Brazil?
I believe so. I think that was our closest contact with the werewolf we know today. Because the Lycaon is a metamorphosis that originates in Greek mythology, ends up connecting with other similar myths, but the other myths end up being absorbed by Lycaon. Everything becomes kind of a werewolf, and when we come into contact with Christianity, the werewolf becomes an entity, a creature that is very adaptable to all cultures. So it absorbs certain aspects of Christianity, especially because it is a cursed being in opposition. So these aspects are always to the detriment of the werewolf. They're always against it.
But is Lycaon the one who absorbs the werewolf?
The werewolf.
The Brazilian and European werewolves.
European, all of them. So we have,
What does he have that's Christian?
for example, the silver bullet, which nobody expects has a Christian symbol. So it was created. The first silver bullet was the one used by the hunter who managed to kill the beast of Gévaudan. How did he do it? He took a little medal of the Virgin Mary, which he kept inside his silver hat, melted it, made a projectile, gave it to a priest, and used it to kill the beast of Gévaudan. It was a loup-garou, right? That's what they call it over there.
The loup-garou is a French thing.
That's loup-garou because it's Gévaudan. So in France, there are many werewolf stories. At the very end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the modern age, that's what you find the most. And the trials for lycanthropy are very interesting, as they were very severe trials.
Let's take it easy. You're bringing up a lot of elements. Was there lycanthropy in the Middle Ages? What exactly was that?
Lycanthropy can be two things. One is, in fact, a trigger that causes a man to transform into an animal through a metamorphosis, which is the werewolf transforming the man who turns into a beast. And we have another one, which is a psychiatric condition where the person believes they turn into an animal. So he has a human appearance but beastly behavior, and then he is cannibalistic, he is violent. Interesting. Speaking of the masculine sign,
It's because people have the idea that a werewolf is something from fiction. In the Middle Ages, it existed.
it existed, it really did. So that's the beauty of the subject.
He existed to the point of having judgments about that.
Based on testimonies, based on torture for people to confess to that. So it definitely existed without a doubt.
Can you tell me some of those more famous stories from the Middle Ages?
I think the Beast of Gévaudan is very famous, but the Beast of Gévaudan doesn't end. It ends up leading to a trial.
Which one turned into a trial?
Gilles Garnier. Catherine Simmons' case is especially interesting.
How did it go?
Catherine Simmons is a young woman who has all the characteristics of the lycanthropes from that time. So during a time of severe food shortage, people would go into the forests looking to hunt. And many accounts say that mythological creatures would give out ointments that, when applied, would turn you into a great hunter. That was the promise made by the entity to the person who received and accepted the ointments, when in fact they would turn into a wolf.
And would they end up with a tapir's phallus?
Not this one, not this one. The tapir's phallus is ours. The one from Europe would be the normal size of a dog.
But in your research, did you find any evidence that there were actually people who believed that werewolves existed?
Absolutely. That's why I enjoyed this book so much. It was a personal quest for me. I'm passionate about werewolves. I found out that my passion started with Rui Rezende in Roque Santero, which in 2025 will be 40 years old.
Mysteries of a werewolf as a man.
These are the unspoken chords. What comes? You already know what the subject will be. So I was in love, and that mix of fear, enchantment, and fascination. And it was really crazy because this whole journey we took, the history about werewolves, it's like a thesis.
Who do you mean by we?
Oh, me and the people who helped me make this book. It was Silo and Matthias with the illustrations. We ended up making a path to reach everyday life. Because the coolest thing for me is to show that the werewolf is in our neighborhood. He lives our reality, our everyday life.
Where is he?
Man, Rodrigo, I went through so much today that it's easy to find, you know? You don't need to worry. If you look, you'll find it.
Do you believe in werewolves? I believe, of course. Really?
I took part in a werewolf hunt in Varzea Paulista, looking for this one.
Did you find it?
We didn't find it. But I went there just now in 2020.
What proof did you have of the werewolf?
That story was really crazy because I thought maybe I wouldn't find him, but then a lot of reports about the werewolf started popping up. In Varzea Paulista, I had finished the book, but then they planned a werewolf hunt, so I thought I have to join this.
Did you want to kill a werewolf?
No, not at all. I wanted to feel the werewolf's panic and see how werewolf stories affect people. When I arrived, people were actually scared. They added me to the WhatsApp group, which was fun because everyone had a solution, everyone had a belief. Some took it seriously, others made jokes. And then a political debate starts from the perspective of the supernatural, for God's sake.
For God's sake, politics doesn't even leave the werewolf alone.
No, but it was incredible because even then the werewolf gets involved. I say he's so adaptable that if that's the topic, they find a way to fit in, and then they organize this hunt.
To kill the werewolf?
To catch the werewolf.
Catch how?
So it started as a symbolic hunt because when they started saying that everyone would bring their own weapon, their shotgun, I don't know what, I thought I would get there and see a scene from the Middle Ages with rakes, sickles, and torches. When I arrived, the group's mood was nothing like that. Actually, there was no one there.
No one was armed?
No, no one armed or unarmed, no one.
Did you go alone?
I went alone, then called the local journalist who invited me. He said the meeting wasn't there. We changed it. Come here to the ranch, and then my status in this story completely changed. Why? I went from being a guy who was gonna take part in a symbolic hunt to a werewolf expert. So I got there. There was a survivalist, Rene Murad, who's a host on Discovery. The guy who was on Naked and Afraid, he was wearing clothes during the hunt. He appeared on Naked and Afraid and also on Dual Survival. There was a hunter, a leader of hunters named Samurai with a safari car.
Were they armed?
They weren't armed. That was a request the organizer had made. And then we started the hunt. At one point, it was interesting because there were howls and barking dogs, but we never found a werewolf. Later, I found out that the intention of those guys wasn't to prove that werewolves existed, it was to prove that werewolves didn't exist. That made everything cooler. Why? Because who am I to say these stories are lies? It changed the city's routine, which is what I wanted, to understand the werewolf panic.
And what is that like?
It's really crazy because we mix a bunch of
Worldviews.
to interpret facts that could easily be explained by an attack from a wild animal.
So, if a jaguar entered a chicken coop and ate or killed about 20 chickens,
And someone else saw something and started spreading that what they saw, based on their worldview and beliefs, was a werewolf. It was great for me to learn about other fears, not just the fear of the werewolf, which I felt during a werewolf hunt. But we could establish this with a rumor about a witch, for example. In Guarujá, after rumors that a woman was a witch who killed children, she was beaten. So it might seem silly, but when you turn this into a deeply rooted fear in a population, it can have very serious consequences,
the Guaratuba witches cases?
like Guaratuba and many similar cases, of course, full of religious prejudice. The guy starts mixing everything up, it turns into madness.
But to understand then, do you believe that werewolves exist?
They exist.
You don't have any doubts?
Now, where it exists is what we can debate.
Do you think there are any werewolves in the world today in 2025?
Absolutely several.
Is it metaphorical? Is it symbolic?
It's metaphorical.
It's metaphorical.
But I think they exist actually, Rodrigo, because in fact the werewolf absorbs men's guilt. When I talk about the sign of the phallus, it seems distant from the violence of Lycaon against the people who went to his kingdom. And Zeus rejected that. Zeus wanted people to live in peace, for those who arrived in good faith in a kingdom to be well treated, not killed. Look at what a metaphor for today, right? And the werewolf has that. He absorbs the guilt of the good man, about the good man who acts wildly. A large part of the victims during this period of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the modern age were children and young women. If we look for some stories that involve contact with wolves, we're going to talk about sexual predation, Little Red Riding Hood, the symbols, the red menstruation, the beginning of fertile life, the presence of the wolf, the predator. It's all there, it's all together. So we have a case of a guy named Stump, the werewolf of Bedburg in Germany, who was tried for lycanthropy and incest. So there's a contact.
He was convicted.
He had a monstrous death.
The story is famous. I think I've heard this story before.
He was dismembered and burned. Then horses tore him apart.
What time was that?
The very end of the 17th century.
Why were werewolves so common in the Middle Ages? Hunger.
Why? Food shortage, cannibalism. The interpretations of these events ended up embracing certain mysticisms and made people believe that they were werewolves. That's why I say that we have to see the werewolf as a necessary metaphor, because a lot of brutal things happened out of human desperation.
And what is the werewolf from your neighborhood, the one you mention in the book?
I say that there are some moments in this book. There's the one about the construction of the archetype, talking about how it's a masculine monster, essentially masculine. There are one or two cases of women
So the neighborhood werewolf is the predator, the man who
can be,
abuser?
that's it. And then I get in touch with him. First, this one that we describe, this archetype, this very unique sign of the werewolf. Then I'll go on to show how much it influences us in our habits and in our cultures. And in the end, I say that it has, apart from these aspects, an emotional component. The werewolf is also a great promoter of reunions. I say that werewolf stories are true emotional bridges. When discussing werewolves, it's common to hear that someone's grandfather, grandmother, aunt, or neighbor saw or encountered one. So we go back to a really nice time. We remember great people. So the werewolf is amazing because it's not just one thing, it can be many things, and we can get a lot out of it.
No, but hold on.
If you dissect this story,
I need to see a werewolf to believe in one.
no, you don't.
No,
No, you don't. You need to believe.
it's a story we can choose to believe or not.
Exactly. I think it's a story we decide whether to believe or not.
Do you go on trips to look for werewolves?
I've done it before, but not to look for them. I've done that hunt, and we have a tour in Campinas that I created to tell werewolf stories. And above all, there's this story of abandonment. This werewolf story has to do with the abandonment of animals, because we do it in a forested area that suffers a lot from dogs being abandoned. And it's very interesting that many dogs, after being abandoned, return to a feral state, form packs, and start hunting and preying on native animals. So there's a tremendous loss in forested areas, swamps, the Atlantic forest, or even in the mountains. Anyway, if you abandon a dog, it joins up with other dogs, they form packs and start eating pacas, deer, they start eating whatever is in front of them.
Could that be what happened in that place where you went?
It could have been.
It could have been a dog, a fox.
The hunter, a samurai and specialist, his guess was that it was a maned wolf with mange. It could be, because it's long-limbed, right? Mange makes them look very ugly. With alopecia too. Animals that lose their fur, like bears with alopecia, become very different and strong-looking creatures.
A bald bear?
Bald bear is a species known as bald bear, but when it gets alopecia, it loses all its fur and looks very strange.
Where did this interest in cemeteries come from?
Wow, look at that. Where did it come from? I think cemeteries are therapeutic too. Here's what happened. When we started organizing the stories of Campinas, I thought it wasn't interesting at all. Just telling this over the internet.
Were you going to share the stories of Campinas cemeteries?
No, from cemeteries across the city. And I created a tour because I thought it was boring to just put that on the internet and leave it there. So I would take people there, especially because I, no longer a skeptic, moved past that phase. I think it's an important step for us to move beyond the Enlightenment and believe that there are other things around us that matter. So I thought I needed to share my experiences with other people's experiences because otherwise I would get stuck in that. I needed other experiences along with mine. So I invited people to go with us, and the first trip was an incredible success.
Just in one cemetery?
Also at the cemetery, we went through the city center and ended at the cemetery. And then what happened was that a lot of people showed up and we said, wow, there's something here. And I had the support of the Campinas Tourism Department, which helped me organize this in an orderly way. I have no training for this. I'm a screenwriter, lawyer, and composer, none of which relate to it.
Makes sense, right? Lawyer, screenwriter, composer.
It's a storyteller, right? That's all it is. That's what we are. At the cemetery, I found not just supernatural tales, but also that the cemetery is the city's greatest storyteller. Everything that happened in the city has witnesses there, from great tragedies, crimes, virtuous lives, to great discoveries.
This here is also a witness to the city, to what happened here. It was a couple in love.
This is a couple. And this photo is very interesting because it shows a reversal of roles. The one who truly died was him, named Antonio Cantarella. She, Maria Cantarella, devastated, commissioned from Alfredo Liani, a great realist sculptor, to express in this bronze piece her feelings about his death. He was more alive than ever, handsome, virile, strong, beautiful. She dead, him kissing her, his love kissing her. Then he translated the love she felt, and she translated the sadness she felt. That's intense, huh? And that was it. Imagine that in the 40s.
Where was it?
São Paulo Necrópolis.
Right next door, 200 meters from here.
It's at the São Paulo Necrópolis.
That's impressive.
Impressive, right?
Do you visit the São Paulo necropolis?
I visit the necropolis, one of São Paulo's cemeteries.
At night?
I'm not obsessed with being in the cemetery at night. I like to go with the public when the cemetery closes for routine activities. I don't like to get in the way. Mourning families, families who go to visit their loved ones, people who have religious activities in cemeteries. I prefer to go when the cemetery is closed, so I go at 6 p.m.
When does the werewolf appear?
He shows up a little later, but I always go whenever the cemetery closes. I've already done tours, like in Campinas for the city's 250th anniversary. I did a tour at 11:59 on July 13th. From the 13th to the 14th, because it was the city's anniversary, I said, I want to spend the anniversary with those who created, with those who built this city.
And it was Friday the 13th.
It wasn't from Saturday to Sunday.
Its creator was buried there.
And then I said, I think it's important to share this anniversary with these people.
Were you born in Campinas?
Yes, I am.
And you have a certain mission to tell the story of Campinas, is that right?
Mission. That's very serious. I think it's therapeutic. All three books have a lot of that. The Hauntings of Campinas talks a bit about my basic fears. I made it still in the rawness of the post-pandemic after losing an aunt. This also relates to our project. When I came to São Paulo and started exploring the cemeteries here, the cemeteries were handed over to private companies. And I was very happy to see that in the public notice there were 12 miracle workers' tombs that had to be preserved. I found that interesting.
Was that a requirement?
A requirement in the public notice.
From the city hall?
From the city hall, and I knew there were many other graves with devotional processes. I went after all of them in every granted cemetery. And I wrote a letter to the city hall, and incredibly it was answered, but only after some time.
What was the letter?
The letter said, I asked the mayor, who is very nice, to keep these 12 graves protected, but I offered 13 more graves with the same devotional process. I found this a beautiful story about someone still seeking a miracle worker in São Paulo. I mean, seeking divinities in this megalopolis in all regions of the city. I found miracle workers, and I think that's amazing because going a little further in the study of these devotional processes, when I was in Rome walking through the catacombs,
Later, I want you to tell me the details about that.
when I was walking, I realized that the structure of devotional practices, cemeteries, and miracle workers, I won't say identical, but it's practically identical.
Italy and Brazil both have miracle workers alike.
Exactly the same. And more than that, it's a devotional process that imitates, because it's very intuitive, the original devotional processes of early Christianity. So I went, for example, to the catacomb of São Sebastião, and there we found ex-votos of Pedro and Paulo. Man, Pedro and Paulo. The bones were hidden there, of course, along with São Sebastião, during the most intense period of persecution against Christians. So how do we know this? Because of the ex-votos found there, made of clay, very rudimentary, but giving thanks for blessings received.
São Pedro and São Paulo.
I mean, the institutionalization of the church didn't exist yet. Rome had not yet adopted or absorbed Christianity as its official religion, All of this was intuitive. The first Christians would go to the catacombs to thank their martyrs. And I found that amazing because it puts our devotional process, which seems very marginal, if we contrast it with the super bureaucratic processes of the church, which have beatification processes, very thorough analyses, that one doesn't, that one doesn't. There it was like this: I believe you can help me. I ask for help. I receive the grace and I give thanks. Publicizing divine power exactly as the early Christians did. I think that's really cool, imagining that we could be in the presence of saints like Pedro and Paulo here. Why not? The difference is that Paulo didn't have dinner, but Pedro had dinner with Christ at the Last Supper. Aside from this temporal aspect of frequency and times, why not?
Since you study this, explain it so everyone understands. What is a cemetery miracle worker?
A cemetery miracle worker is a devotional process, a cemetery phenomenon that comes from rural or unofficial Catholicism. From the realization of a devotee that that tomb has someone or something that helps them solve everyday problems, he gives thanks and starts to worship that person or that space. This type of process ends up resulting in the placement of ex votos, which are the elements that identify these spaces. It's the easiest way to see. But sometimes this process, which is usually very regional, crosses the borders of cities or even regions. In São Paulo, for example, we have devotions that are very characteristic of certain regions. Bento do Portão in Santo Amaro. Everyone in Santo Amaro knows Bento do Portão. But if you go to the west zone, maybe you don't know Menina Isildinha. Menina Isildinha, Menina Isildinha. It's incredible the phenomenon that was Menina Isildinha coming to São Paulo. And what happens from this devotional process is something really crazy.
Tell me the story from the beginning.
The girl Isildinha was a little girl who was very influenced by Catholicism. She loved the church, practiced charity in her daily life, and helped people. This was in Portugal. She was Portuguese. She died of leukemia, lived in Póvoa de Lanhoso, and died in Guimarães, where she was buried.
How old was she when she died?
13 years old. She is buried. 39 years go by. Another brother of hers dies in another city, not in Póvoa de Lanhoso.
Was she already seen as a miracle worker there?
No, she was just a very beloved girl. Jose, her brother, dies in another city and is buried there. Later, the family decides to transfer his remains to the family tomb in Póvoa de Lanhoso. A brother who lived here in Brazil, Altino, was very upset about this. He asked why they did that with Jose but not Isildinha.
Moving someone from one grave to another?
Right? Why didn't they do that with her? He said, do this, Exume Isildinha. Here's the money. Send her remains to Brazil, and wherever I go, Isildinha goes with me.
What year are we in?
We are in 1950.
And how do you bring Isildinha's remains to Brazil in 1950?
Calm down. It's amazing when they open Isildinha's grave to send her to Altino, Portugal. Her body remained incorrupt. She not only had her body preserved, but also the flowers, the lace, the little dress. She appeared to have been buried that day. It was a shock.
Isildinha's body was found incorrupt 39 years later.
Exactly. And everyone was amazed. This was seen as a sign of divinity. In the past,
Of holiness, let's say.
it's just that I'm careful about that.
You use divinity, which is divine.
I don't use holiness because the decree of holiness belongs to the church.
But divinity is something above.
Yes. I prefer divinity because the status of saint inevitably comes from a decree of the church, whether by process, by recognition of a miracle, by martyrdom, or by sacrifice. Then it goes straight and canonizes.
Tell her story.
And then Isildinha comes to Brazil. She is described as perfect. She gets a big reception,
Perfect like Santa Rita or Carla Kutz?
like Carla Cutts. All the descriptions of Isildinha say that she was in perfect condition.
Because we know that Carla Kutz went through treatments, silicone wax, and other processes.
Isildinha, as far as we know, was truly incorrupt. Carla Kutz was already in a slow state of decomposition, as far as we know.
Isildinha wasn't.
She came in perfect condition. When she arrived here, there was a big procession. She came by ship from Santos to São Paulo and was buried in the São Paulo necropolis.
But hold on, when she arrived, you sent me a photo here that...
This is her arrival. Because she stayed here from 1950 to 1958, then her brother left for Monte Alto and took her with him. This is her arrival in Monte Alto. She leaves here with this status before arriving in Monte Alto. Her mausoleum was already in the city center. So the Isildinha phenomenon is incredible.
A mausoleum in the center, not in the cemetery?
It's not in the cemetery. I went there. It's impressive. I took this picture there. It's a picture of a picture. It was a big commotion when Isildinha arrived in Monte Alto. Tremendous, because
Was Brazil's first arrival also a commotion?
it was with a lot of commotion,
São Paulo as well.
because she already leaves Portugal with the status of a deity.
But how?
But I don't say saint because I even fight for the affirmation of this phenomenon. I always say cemetery miracle worker because there's no shame in it. No shame in admitting it's from the cemetery. I support cemetery miracle workers. Sometimes a saint escapes. It's not just a matter.
No one is going to send you to hell.
It's not just a matter of semantics because I think the processes are different. That's why I make a point of differentiating them.
So, was Isildinha taken to Monte Alto in Minas Gerais?
No Monte Altos em São Paulo, near Ribeirão. What happens next? This tomb received one of her relics, so there's ongoing devotion.
Is there still anything in the tomb here in São Paulo next to us?
Correct. She has a relic, and something similar happened with Antonino da Rocha Marmo.
You can tell me about him later, but what's in Isildinha's tomb?
A relic of hers.
Do you know what it is?
No, I don't know.
Is it part of a bone?
Probably some part of her tissue.
They kept the tomb intact here in São Paulo.
It's a cenotaph where she was buried, and there's clearly a devotional process there with one of her relics.
Is there a second body in the tomb?
Yes, there are other people buried there.
In the same grave?
Yes, there are. No, there isn't. Only Isildinha. She has a relative named Rosa.
Is she a saint or miracle worker too?
No, you can say saint.
Now, what is attributed to Isildinha?
Are many miracles of all kinds. I like to say that Isildinha is a general practitioner because some miracle workers have specialties. Isildinha doesn't. She handles all kinds of miracles. Isildinha's miracle room in Monte Alto is impressive. Many children, many related topics. And it's interesting because you don't need to go there or touch anything. They even display her death certificate. Many people take pictures of the certificate and pray over it. Because the idea of martyrdom caused by illness since she was a very young girl, a soul therefore absolutely pure. So people pray over the martyrdom. Many of these miracle workers, when they come into contact with the Catholic Church, end up offering their own martyrdom to Jesus. I'm suffering for you, don't worry, it's a bearable pain. Based on the idea that suffering serves a purpose, the purpose of purification. This appears in her, in Antonio da Rocha Marmo, and in other miracle workers. I forgot the name now, Nelsinho Santana, who stayed in Guaratuba. There are several children who show a great deal of maturity and an almost absolute faith, Luis de Guglielmo as well.
But how do you have news about Isildinha if we only know about her after 39 years of her death? How did the idea start to form that she performed? Or interceded for miracles to happen?
When they exhume the body and notice its incorrupt condition, they inevitably associate it with the divine state. When people come across an incorrupt body, it spreads immediately. They start saying she's a holy girl, divine, something like that. And when she comes to Sao Paulo, this condition is also exploited in that sense. It's not something kept secret. On the contrary, it's very publicized.
I've never heard of that. Never.
The cemetery, Rodrigo, has always been a place for social gatherings. Nowadays, we're very distant from the cemetery, maybe because of our way of living, thinking that the moment is more important, that consuming is more important, that we have to have more than to be. When we understand that being is more important, we start to access the cemetery and realize that to stay here longer, it's necessary to generate more than just money or assets. It's necessary to create memories, affection. That's what makes us stay here longer. The cemetery becomes a place of social gathering when these values are more present. We see great works in cemeteries. This one, for example, is different because it has a very evident emotional aspect.
But you can see others back here in the photo.
There are many, many. If you look at the intentions of the families, especially Italian, Syrian, Lebanese, Armenian, foreign families who came to Brazil very poor and prospered here, they seek to establish themselves in cemeteries in the same way they sought to establish themselves in society. Many times, for example, the tomb of the Matarazzo family, he came from Italy with nothing. He became extremely wealthy, one of the world's richest men and the richest in Italy and Brazil. When he wanted a plot at Consolação Cemetery, the most traditional families didn't give him a good spot. They gave him a spot at the back of the cemetery. It was like saying, you may have money, but you lack traditional lineage. You can do whatever you want, even build a Maracanã, but you'll still be at the back of the cemetery. And he ended up benefiting the whole Consolação area. But why was he so insistent on that? Because when you build these structures, we see this in Egypt. People go to Egypt to see pyramids, which are tombs. It's the idea of immortality, that memory doesn't perish. This has always been closely connected to the cemetery space, which was a place of social gathering.
Going back to Isildinha, she had a very famous devotee.
Very dear, very loved. Rita Lee adored her.
She even mentioned her in a song.
She mentioned her in a song. That's cool, right? She's amazing, isn't she?
There are many devotees of Isildinha in Brazil today.
Yes, but Isildinha represents an interesting change in these devotional processes. This shows up in the baptismal names of many people. From the 1950s until the early 1970s, we see a lot of Maria Isildinha.
I don't know any Isilda.
Zizi Posse.
It's Maria Isilda.
Maria Isildinha Posse.
Then it became Zizi. There's another.
I've heard a lot of people tell me that my grandmother's name is Isildinha, my grandmother's name is Isilda because of the girl Isildinha.
Something about Isilda sounds familiar to me.
This period comes from Isildinha. It wasn't a common Portuguese name, so look at the people baptized or born during this interval. Zizi Posse was born in 1956, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to be rude, but that's when Isildinha was popular.
And this young man here, this boy here.
Another very interesting miracle worker is Antonio Marcelino. His nickname is Menino da Tábua because he was born with a syndrome that caused him not to develop from the waist down. He was only comfortable on top of a board like this, used for washing clothes in the river. He stayed naked all day. He didn't grow, didn't develop, and didn't communicate. At least he didn't speak. Apparently, he had a cognitive deficit, but he was still alive, always has been. He was always able to achieve miracles.
Still alive?
And most importantly, he had a notorious reputation for helping a lot of cattle ranchers who sold milk. So these dairy farmers whose cows weren't producing milk would go to Antonio Marcelino's house, bring him a liter of milk, and when they returned, their cows were already giving milk. And what's interesting, he didn't eat solid food. He only drank milk and water. He lived like that for 40 years.
He spent 40 years drinking only milk and water. Does it remind you of Lola's current case?
Who fed only on the Eucharist. He only ate that. And then what's really curious, they also said that if you went to visit him, because people went not only out of curiosity but out of necessity, they would visit Antonio Marcelino to request things for their family. And he, even though he didn't eat, the family ended up receiving donations. They ate many things and didn't charge money. This was never officially recorded, but they asked for and received a lot of food. Where did he live? In Maracaí,
Which state?
here in São Paulo.
Is he buried in Maracaí, São Paulo?
He's buried in Maracaí. He was born in a city whose name I forgot, near Maracaí. He wasn't born in Maracaí. The family moved there. The story of this miracle worker is incredible to me. Why? Once a year, on the last weekend of August, he died on August 31st. Sometimes it falls exactly on the 31st, but it's always on that last weekend. There's a festival in Maracaí, almost entirely in the cemetery and on the main street that leads to it. A city with 12,000 inhabitants receives close to 60,000 people. It's impressive.
On the date of Marcelino's death?
On Marcelino's death date, he's not a saint, just a cemetery miracle worker. But the local church holds masses all day. There are shows. There's everything in honor of the boy of the board who was buried with the board. It's the same one who was buried with the board. That's why we don't see the board. The stories about him are very interesting. They say that when someone tried to take him off the board, he would cry a lot.
He must have had some kind of back problem.
I don't know exactly what it was. He hated wearing clothes. When they were expecting visitors, he would just put a cloth over his genitals. And it could be 0 degrees, which is rare in Maracaí. No matter how cold it was, he had to be naked, even at 40 years old.
Even at 40 years old.
Even at 40 years old.
He never got off the board.
He never left the board. If they removed him, he cried. When his mother pitied him in the cold, she dressed him. Mysteriously, he would wake up naked. He didn't move. He had a visible atrophy in all his limbs. He stayed still all the time with his little hands clenched. And no one can explain why, after dressing him, he'd wake up undressed.
What is this image?
This image shows how he spent his days.
But where is this?
This is inside the chapel where he was buried.
Is the sculpture small or large?
It's a sculpture his size. He didn't grow, he was about that size.
The size of a baby?
Of a 3-year-old child. People used to say,
What a story. There's no photo.
that's really curious. There's no photo or record of him. This face we see everywhere was created from a composite sketch made by a specialist police officer. That's because he died in 1940.
So he was born in 1900.
1900, 1940. The portrait was made from the image of his brother who looked a lot like him.
No one doubts he existed.
No, there's no doubt at all. What exists is that this image is of his brother.
Who looked a lot like him.
He was practically identical. It's incredible. This is one of the best stories. I went to the party. It's impressive. I thought it was something more cultural, but it's not. It's a festival that unites commerce and devotion. Impressive. Rodrigo, man, buses are everywhere from all regions. I did a report for Ili Korea about this story and talked to 4 different people. One of them worked with local tourism and talked about how important it was for boosting business. Another was a seller of religious items who would leave Aparecida to sell at the Menino da Tabua festival. I met the husband of a devotee. His father was a devotee. He had already passed away, and he asked her to always go to the festival because the Menino da Tabua did a lot for the family. He saved you as a child.
Are these people Catholic?
I think so. They all were because there's an inevitable dialogue with the church. He stays in a chapel. So probably they all are. It's something I didn't ask. Another person was a lady with breast cancer who was moved by comments from her friends. She wasn't from Maracay and went by bus with a group. She began breast cancer treatment and sought help from the boy from the board. That's very beautiful to me. It's this part about people's faith. Who am I to say that doesn't help? It's really something very beautiful.
Do you believe these cemetery miracles actually happen?
I believe they give strength. When I talk about cemetery miracle workers, I mention Maria Judite de Barros at Consolação Cemetery, who is known for helping college entrance exam candidates. I say study and go there to ask for help. It's no use just asking for help.
You have to study.
You have to study.
But if you ask for help,
That's where Antonio Marcelino comes in, who answers all kinds of requests, but there are many intercessions related to health. You go to the doctor, get treatment, and ask for help. You seem to like Antonio Marcelino a lot. A lot, no? By everyone. I'm passionate about the subject. Why? Because the miracle workers have a great degree of humanity in their understanding of the phenomenon. The first step for someone to become a miracle worker doesn't come from the miracle, it comes from compassion for death. In most cases, people start praying and sharing the family's burden. The incorrupt body is a separate case. After a very similar death felt mainly in children and in women who are victims of violence, then
Marcelino is not a typical case. He is not a woman who is a victim of violence.
but he lived a miserable life.
As a child as well.
A child who was never truly a child, never had a chance to play, and lived in isolation. So people started praying to him, but Antonio Marcelino to me was destined to be a miracle worker. People say that when you went to Antonio Marcelino's house and he smiled at you, that would be the best day of your life. And if he cried, it was better to go home because everything would go wrong. So his whole life he lived within this supernatural outline.
He was a bit of a prophet.
He was a little bit of a prophet, yes. He just wasn't a complete prophet because he couldn't profess anything.
He didn't speak.
He didn't say anything, nothing at all.
Marcelino didn't say anything.
Not a single word. Everything was expression, crying and smiling.
And many miracles are attributed to him.
The boy from Tabua Festival is impressive. I recommend visiting one day because
I'll go with you.
let's go, man. It's amazing, yeah. It's 3 days of partying. Of course, there's a part that ended up being very economical. The region is close to Paraná, that crossing over there near Paraguay. So there are a lot of street vendors
People come from Paraguay,
from all over Brazil.
from all over Brazil. Devotees of Marcelino.
Many people from Paraná, which is nearby, and from the countryside of São Paulo. It's an impressive festival.
Are you religious?
Religious, I don't know. Saying it like that, maybe. By the way, it's part of my promise to talk about Saint Expedito because he has helped me a lot with everything I ask for. So I'm starting to see myself as a devotee of Saint Expedito. So I think so. But how? I haven't done my first communion. I haven't done any of that. I'm a samba musician. I used to love going to Macumba.
But isn't your background Catholic?
It's not Catholic. My grandmother baptized me. She was Protestant Presbyterian, but I never had any religious contact after that. I love Caio Fabio and talk to Cayon. He's amazing. But I didn't have any kind of religious guidance at home.
And today, are you a devotee of Saint Expedito?
Completely. Underwater.
Where did this devotion come from?
It happened like this. I'm the father of two children. And I was going through some financial disarray. It's funny how that ends up making you feel down because we make the wrong choices. And one day I was coming out of a moment of desolation because of my own mistakes. It's complicated. Mistakes mess you up, but in the medium and long term. And I was thinking about how to solve these issues of mine,
A financial issue that you had.
a financial issue of mine. Leaving the gym, I saw a prayer card of Saint Expedito scattered around. Someone had left it there. I picked one up and started reading it. It felt like it was speaking to me. Today, I have the habit of saying the prayer of Saint Expedito when I wake up and before I go to sleep. And I've been giving thanks more than asking because it's not like everything has been solved. But it doesn't trouble me like it used to. It doesn't make me so anxious. As long as I have legs to chase after things, I know I'll figure it out. That's the great energy he brings into my daily life. It's really crazy. Sometimes I understand things and wonder, is this real?
So, are you in a process of religious change?
I'm undergoing a religious change. I'm afraid of reaching some kind of block and stopping believing in something and end up having to abandon my own principles to respect dogmas. That's why I say I'm completely devoted to Saint Expedito, even without knowing everything about him. I want to learn more, even out of gratitude. One of my promises is to always talk about him when I pray. For those who have faith, and I think we're speaking to an audience that has a lot of faith, Saint Expedito is amazing. You should seek him out. He truly helps. But I'm wary of restrictions like you must do this or that. I think I was conditioned by this kind of devotion that I found, and it helped me a lot to turn great tragedies around. So it's not my case, but we see that with many miracle workers in cemeteries, there are extremely violent deaths. The idea is that if this isn't turned into something that makes sense, even if it's through faith, which is a leap into the void, there's no reason in it. Because if you try to find reason or try to measure God, you end up reducing him. God is everything. It's this idea that God doesn't exist as a thing. God is, and he is everything. This book is a book of conversions for me, including my own.
The book Miracle Workers of the Cemetery.
It's a book of conversions, 100%.
Have the miracle workers ever performed a miracle in your life?
Chaguinhas.
Chaguinhas, what's the story?
Well, Chaguinhas, Francisco José das Chagas was a corporal. He was black. He was stationed at the 1st Battalion of Hunters in Santos. After a long period without a salary, 5 years without pay, he and other soldiers of the native Brazilian army, in 1821, there was the native army and the Portuguese army. Chaguinhas rises up against the Portuguese army. With other soldiers, they take forts in Santos, attack a Portuguese frigate, and after 10 days, they are suppressed. Many are killed in Santos, but he and Cotidiba are taken to the capital to serve as an example.
Chaguinhas and who?
Chaguinhas and his partner Cotidiba. They spend their last night in the chapel of the afflicted in an adapted cell. And on September 20th, 1821, They are taken to the gallows scaffold at Largo da Liberdade, formerly Largo da Forca, where today stands the Church of the Holy Cross of the Hanged.
In Santos?
No, in Liberdade neighborhood, Sao Paulo, just for geographic reference.
Church of the Black People.
From Liberdade, right there.
No, it was the chapel of the Cemetery of the Afflicted. Liberdade is built atop a cemetery which remains undisturbed to this day. Cotidiba is executed first. The gallows works perfectly. When Chaginas is placed on the scaffold, they release the gallows, it breaks, and the people start begging for mercy. A clergyman was recording these events, and whenever any incident appeared to be divine, he would approach the army chief at the time and say, God doesn't want them to kill. He asked if Chaginas' execution could be stopped. The answer was no. He had to die.
And they killed Chaginas.
Calm down. They put another noose on Chaginas and dropped him again. The noose snapped again. When that happens, the people who were begging for mercy start shouting, freedom! Because of Chaguinhas, people say that's why the neighborhood is called Liberdade. More skeptical historians say it's because of Brazil's independence, but I'm sure it's because of Chaguinhas.
Isn't there also a version that says it's because of the liberation of the enslaved people? I've heard that version before. It could be.
But popularly, people, including the organized black community, embrace the idea of Chaguinhas more than that of liberation.
And Chaginas survives.
He doesn't die. Second time. On the third attempt, they reinforce the rope with a leather strap and drop his body again. There are two versions. One says the rope breaks and he is killed with knives and clubs. The other says the rope doesn't break and he stays there. If they kept trying to hang Chaginas, maybe they'd still be at it today. So they let go of the rope and kill him, then yes, with clubs and knives. He is buried in the cemetery of the afflicted. Initially, a devotional process begins at the foot of the gallows. Later, when they place a cross where the gallows stood, this process continues. For almost 200 years afterwards,
the object remained there.
Yes, the devotional process remained. Then it moves to the chapel of the afflicted, which is the last remaining exposed part of this cemetery. This devotional process was moved there and is now São Paulo's intangible heritage, the devotion to Chaguinhas. The people call him the Black Saint of Freedom. I like the idea that freedom happens because of Chaguinhas. I'm also a devotee of Chaguinhas. You see, I'm more religious than I thought, right? I don't know.
Are you a devotee of Chaginas?
I'm a devotee of Chaguinhas too.
What was the miracle he performed in your life?
A lot of things. From family health issues to financial help, incredible things happen. When I talk about financial help, I mean paying bills. I'm not talking about getting rich. It's not about asking to become a millionaire. It's about asking for specific help, and things happen. A job comes up, something that seemed impossible appears. It's really cool.
How do you make a request to a cemetery miracle worker in the case of Chaguinhas?
You need to believe
You go there?
if you want. I think that going there is a symbolic gesture, but it's not mandatory. For example, the girl Isildinha receives requests from afar. Many people pray using the death certificate. It's the same thing with Chaguinhas. You can project the image. That's what the image is for, to project. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical image, especially because there are very few records of Chaguinhas,
There is a painting?
but it's very little. The person who officially reports this event is Regent Feijó, Father Diogo Feijó. That's why it's not a legend. There is an official record.
So there's a record.
There's a record. He witnessed the event.
No one doubts that Chaguinhas existed.
No one doubts it. The records are clear. There is a detailed description
Of the hanging.
of the hanging, all documented by Regent Fejo, who witnessed it.
In your case, do you make requests in cemeteries?
I rarely do it, even though it seems frequent. Many others do it, though. In cemeteries, many people pray in front of the graves, repeating this process from the first devotions of early Christianity, which in fact come from even older practices. Going down layers, going back a bit, family devotions that come from pre-Christian practices from other civilizations who believed in praying at the places of the dead. We just went through All Souls Day. This date has that meaning to pray for the souls in purgatory who need prayers. And who from time to time can help other people with worldly matters. Family devotion is fascinating. Structurally, it's easy to understand. You have an ancestor who passes away. He is buried, often on the property itself. People prayed there because they believed those prayers kept the soul close. So that soul wouldn't wander lost. That's why they prayed. It was a form of spiritual care. Some theorists say that even civil adoptions came about because of this. Of course, in a much more patriarchal context. Men who couldn't have children resorted to this. They were allowed to adopt someone, and the purpose was to have someone to pray for them after their death. Praying for them was something fundamental. Of course, this comes to us through Catholic culture. But I went to a cemetery in Alvarez Machado, the only Japanese cemetery in Brazil, which created Shokonsai, a festival replacing Obon, the Japanese Day of the Dead. This festival takes place on the second Sunday of July. There are cultural celebrations, cuisine, dances, all inviting the ancestors to spend the day with the living. At the end of the day, they light lanterns on the graves so the ancestors can leave. It's very beautiful. There's no problem in reaching out to the dead, in honoring them. Other cultures offer food. That's something fundamental in many religions. This recovery is ancestral and cultural. We're not just talking about lineage, but also about values and culture. When you invite your ancestors, there is also reaffirmation. There can be help, advice, but also reaffirmation of values, cultural and ethical values. That's why I find this reclaiming of ancestry beautiful. That's also why there are chapels in cemeteries. When burials in churches are prohibited, people start building chapels to have places for prayer. In the holy fields,
I didn't know where Chaginas was buried.
in the cemetery of the afflicted.
Is his grave there?
No, because the cemetery of the afflicted was sold for the completion of the São Paulo Cathedral, not the first one, the other one. So Chaguinhas was buried in the cemetery of the afflicted. When I say that the cemetery of the afflicted is still there, it's because in 2018, next to the chapel of the afflicted,
The chapel is still there.
it's a memorial landmark. This year is the cemetery of the afflicted's 250th anniversary. And something very current, we got a law passed in Sao Paulo. It's just waiting for the mayor's approval, but it's already been approved by the city council. including authored by Sylvain Leite, it's important to give credit to the councilmen. This law establishes October 3rd as the Day of Funerary Cultural Heritage of São Paulo. The city will be the first capital in the country to officially recognize this heritage. Campinas, my city, already has this. I brought it there and now here too. The third is the founding date of the Cemitério dos Aflitos, which turned 250 years old in 2025.
Is this founding related to Chaguinas's death?
There's no connection. The cemetery already existed. Dating to 1775, the Cemetery of the Afflicted was run by the Catholic Church, which monopolized death. Monopoly over funeral services, ceremonies, all of that. But it was a pluralistic cemetery. It received Catholics, indigenous people, and people of other religions. That's why it was considered unworthy. The wealthier classes didn't want to be buried in the Cemetery of the Afflicted. There's an interesting fact connected to the law school. There's the tomb of Julius Frank, a German Lutheran professor who couldn't be buried in a Catholic cemetery. Because he was Lutheran, he would have been buried in the Cemetery of the Afflicted. But the students thought that was unworthy and asked for him to be buried inside the law school. Today, the University of São Paulo Law School at Largo São Francisco houses the tomb of this German Lutheran professor.
Did Chaguinas's body vanish?
Chaguinhas vanished, entering eternity.
But how did this devotion not end? Or isn't this just a legend?
It's a devotional process maintained by the Black Mothers of the Liberdade neighborhood, a neighborhood now identified as Japanese. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the origin is indigenous and black. The ones who kept this devotion to Chaguinhas alive were the Black Mothers who lived in Baixada do Glixério in Cambuci, in this lower region of Liberdade, preserving it for 2 centuries. That's very beautiful.
And did it reach you?
It reached me.
Who is this one?
This is a very sad story. Taninha is at the Inhaúma Cemetery in the north zone of Rio de Janeiro. She was the victim of an extremely publicized crime known as the Fera da Penha case. This woman killed Taninha with immense levels of cruelty.
How old was Taninha?
She was 4 years old.
And who was this woman?
This woman? The Beast of Penha was Taninha's father's lover. They met on the bus. He worked on the bus. Talking about blame is too much because she's a murderer, but there was emotional manipulation. To get revenge, she kidnapped the child. She picked Taninha up at school, tricked the staff by saying she was there at the parents' request. She took the girl to a tannery, shot her in the back of the neck, and set her body on fire at the scene. And then,
Did he leave?
no, it was at the tannery itself.
Oh, okay.
The tannery security guards saw what happened, and after that, Taninha ended up being buried. After being buried in Inhaúma Cemetery, she became a little miracle worker of the cemetery. This is a very sad story.
When did this devotion start?
From the 60s. There's a movie called The Wolf at the Door in which Leandra Leal plays this woman.
Do you remember this woman's name?
Naide,
Naida, the Beast of Penha.
the Beast of Penha.
Here we see an example of devotion to Taninha.
Exactly, that's one. Taninha became a little miracle worker in Rio, closely connected to children's themes. She especially helps with children's health issues. There is a common practice among miracle working children, helping other kids give up their pacifiers. That's why on the graves of little angels, we see many pacifiers left by parents. When children give up this habit, the objects are placed on the graves of the miracle workers.
Do you know why Taninha's grave has so many dolls?
Because it's a children's item. People offer dolls. In Brasilia, there's the case of Ana Lydia, another murdered child. The case reached 50 years in 2023. She was also kidnapped from a school. After the disappearance, the body was found with signs of sexual violence, and there was a doll next to it. Ana Lydia became a cemetery miracle worker at Campo da Esperança in Brasilia, and people bring dolls as thanks. This case is emblematic because it happened during the harshest period of the military dictatorship. Many suspected that those involved had connections with influential people in the government. To this day, it is not known who were the tormentors of little Ana Lydia.
That reminds me of this photo here.
That's right.
Eunice Paiva is a miracle worker at the cemetery.
Dr. Eunice Paiva did very important things for the country, not just in that symbolic role. Not as a miracle worker, but because of the strength she had. The strength of this woman was out of this world.
Do you visit her grave?
We included it in our itinerary.
After the movie, I'm still here.
I've studied cemeteries for a while, and the grave is at Araçá Cemetery.
Where is it?
At Araçá, right nearby. At Araçá Cemetery. After the movie, I recognized the grave from a photograph of Fernanda Torres. I had already passed by there without connecting the name to the person.
Had you already passed by there?
I always used to walk along that sidewalk because there's an iconic work nearby, the Impassive Muse. So that's how we decided to include that spot in our itinerary.
People want to visit the tomb. A lot of Eunice Paiva.
We paid a visit there on Oscars Day. Who knows?
How interesting.
Maybe she helped us.
Did you go to see if she'd win?
We went on Oscar night, prayed that evening, and Brazil won the Oscar. Who knows? It could have been a miracle, right? But I think the movie is good enough. It didn't need any help.
But you guys went there to ask anyway.
We went there to ask. It didn't cost anything.
And your incursion? First, there's a picture here. I wanted to understand what it is.
Like I said, cemeteries are great storytellers. This is a horrible story connected to the migration flow of Polish women to Brazil. At the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, there was a large influx of Jewish women coming from Eastern Europe to Brazil, mostly with the promise of a better life. Life in that region was very difficult at that time. They married men who promised them a better life, and when they arrived here, they found sexual exploitation, ending up in prostitution. In Brazil, there is a cemetery for Polacas in São Paulo and another in Cubatão.
This one is in Cubatão.
There's also one in Rio de Janeiro, which I visited. I'm not sure if there's one in Pernambuco. The largest flow was to Argentina, Buenos Aires, La Plata, Santos, and Rio de Janeiro, which were the main destinations of the Polacas. The story is very sad, and the cemetery is very significant because they managed to preserve their religious culture. They organized themselves and bought a space to be the cemetery, since Jewish funeral culture is quite different from ours. In this space, they began to receive the bodies of the Polacas and some husbands, all of them Jewish. There's a beautiful moment because this place was abandoned for a period after their deaths. In 1996, there was a formal apology from the community for the abandonment. The São Paulo Jewish Cemetery Association, the Chevra Kadisha, took over the management of the place. There was also a formal apology for everything they went through, for all that time and for the entire history of suffering. Today, the place is very well maintained. It's a striking cemetery.
You made a big journey through Italy. You are Italian, you have dual citizenship. Did you visit any sacred sites there? The dormitory of St. Francis.
In Greccio, where he made the first nativity scene, it's impressive. What struck me the most was the level of penance that this man lived. He slept on this stone that we see with only a piece of wood.
I visited other places connected to St. Francis and saw something similar in Assisi.
Oops. The life of St. Francis is very impressive.
Were you here with your son?
With my youngest daughter.
She was sleeping.
Good thing, because she's a pest when she's awake.
And you also made an incursion into the history of the church through the catacombs. What were you looking for on that journey?
I wanted to see if I could find mainly some parallel with the devotional processes that we study. When visiting the catacombs, I realized that these popular devotional processes are not far from the original practices. I found exactly what I expected to find.
What?
This kind of communication practice based on oral, visual, and imagery tradition. For example, people were illiterate at that time.
In the time of the first Christians.
They were illiterate. So what was the strategy to communicate biblical passages? Painting. People painted biblical scenes. I visited the Vatican necropolis under St. Peter's Basilica with incredible tombs and frescoes. There was a fresco of the story of Jonah and the whale. You're not allowed to take pictures, of course. Someone told that story to another person and it was painted to remain there. That resonates with the great human difficulty in facing death. You are inside the whale, but you will come out transformed. I got very close to the remains of St. Peter, which is really impressive. Even for someone who is not religious, that's impactful.
But you've already said you're somewhat religious. You have devotion.
I'm kind of a mutt when it comes to religion, the caramel dog of faith.
Did you get close to St. Pedro both physically and spiritually?
It was very intense in both ways. All of this made me reflect on the importance of physical presence and relics. Does that really have any effect? He wasn't an alien. He was a human who had a unique spiritual experience, an intense experience with the Messiah. A man who lived just over 30 years ago and who is still remembered today as a close friend. That was the idea. Studying the devotional process is required. For me, physical presence. Why pray for the dead and in place of the dead?
What did you find out about that?
It was more of a sensory discovery than an academic one. I understood why people go to the cemetery. The physical reference is fundamental. Why did Dr. Eunice Paiva look for Rubens for so long, even knowing that he was dead? Because that's part of a process. Death is the first step toward existence. We live, we die, and we keep existing or not. Having that physical memory in front of you allows you to pray, ask for forgiveness, forgive, and even talk. I can't explain why this is so important, but it is. Could it be that, as the ancients believed, souls remain nearby? Maybe by being close to the mortal remains, we are also close to the spirits? Or maybe it's just memory. That could be it too.
If it's only memory, that's still a lot.
For me, overcoming death is preserving memory. The rest is belief. To overcome forgetfulness, which is the most perverse effect of death, we need to remember. Forgetting causes people to die again.
And this visit here?
This one was amazing too. It was something I was curious about.
Kalaputs.
Yeah, me too. In this process of understanding devotional practices, it was almost inevitable not to visit him. I visited before the canonization. Carlo Putz is really interesting because he has a very close relationship with our country.
Is this you?
That's me.
You look different.
You look different. I think I'm a bit chubbier.
You look serious.
I'm serious. So I thought I needed to understand this. It was really interesting. Me too. This restyling of Carlo Putz's corpse. Until then, I didn't know all the details of the makeover he went through. It was an impressive physical transformation. At first, I thought it was an incorrupt body. You look at his skin and compare it to yours and think, I'm dead, he's not. Then I found out he was. And I understand the reasons why they did the restoration.
It was a preservation process that involved several additions of materials.
Because actually, the image is very important. Speaking of the body, the image also matters. Today, we no longer understand the decrepitude of the body as something natural or as an element of humility. Our idea of the dead is closer to a horror zombie than to an approach to the divine. This is entirely different for the Franciscans. Go to the Capuchin chapel and see the mummified monks. For them, it is beautiful because those people are before the divine in the most noble place a soul can be. But in the world of entertainment that causes immediate repulsion, what is that, Mount Calvary? In the Capuchin chapel, there was a chandelier made of skulls. It's strange, but for them, it was a work of art. Using one's own body as art is disturbing, but it makes sense in this context. Believing you're in the presence of the divine completely changes the meaning.
In the end, why did you become a cemetery tour guide?
I'm a monitor, not a guide. Guide is a regulated profession, a tourism guide. I make a point of that distinction. I'm a monitor, and that's what I became. Including because of the very premise of this activity.
Which is visiting cemeteries.
This activity is even recognized by the Ministry of Tourism as an interpretation of the territory. What I try to show is that cemeteries deserve protection and can offer experiences beyond their sanitary function and mourning. They can be other things. They can be places of memory, reunion, art, biographies, and history. They provoke reflections on violence and social behaviors. And they also recognize virtuous actions of great people.
For you, the cemetery can be a place of spiritual reunion.
Totally. That broad idea of spirituality is the most beautiful part. I love to see the supernatural recognized as a space for spirituality. I think that's amazing. Speaking of ghosts, I think the following: who sees a ghost solves the greatest existential question of humanity. Since we developed something called consciousness,
I'd love to see a ghost.
me too, but it depends on the circumstances. I'm kidding.
What if it were Chiquinho?
No, for God's sake, I have a problem with Chiquinho.
What's the story with Chiquinho?
It's a very curious story.
Are you afraid of him?
I've already had a strange experience with him. I'll explain. Borda da Mata is a city in southern Minas. In 1953, a Portuguese man broke into the sacristy of the Basilica of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, asking Father Sintra for help. The problem started with restless animals. Then there were apparitions, screams, and curses. He said, "All right." The priest went and gave a blessing. A few days later, the Portuguese man's 14-year-old daughter was in her room. The door opened. She saw a figure she recognized as the devil, red with horns.
Is that what she saw?
That's what she saw. He said, "I'm Chiquinho and I came to get you." The girl ran out, desperate. The father went back to Father Sintra, who took action. They called Friar Belchior, a Capuchin experienced in cleansings and exorcisms. He went to the farm and said that if it was something more serious, authorization from the bishop would be needed to perform the Roman ritual of exorcism, which requires formal authorization. It's not something you do randomly. Belchior confronted the entity which was materializing. Then he said he could ask for authorization.
The entity was named Chiquinho.
He was from Minas Gerais, right? Of course, there was no other possible name. Even the demons around here had to be called Chiquinho. You'll understand that when you go there with me. The priest asked for permission and the bishop granted it.
For the exorcism.
That happened on April 23rd, 1953. There are two versions. One says that the Portuguese man was drunk when he made the promise. He said that if it was a boy, he would give him to the devil. That's one of the versions. The other says that he made a pact to give his daughter away when she came of age. Here we open a lot of quotation marks. At that time, 14 years old was already considered an acceptable age for marriage. That's why Chiquinho would have gone after the girl. They went there, it was a huge mess. Chiquinho went to rescue the girl's soul. He went to claim what he believed was his, per the agreement with the father. And there go the three. The priest who accompanied Belchior, Father Sintra, and the trouble starts with Chiquinho, who was materializing. The guy was really crazy, right? It wasn't exactly an exorcism because he didn't embody anyone. He didn't possess anyone. They argued, speaking in Latin and Aramaic. Belchior spoke all languages. He starts to get tired and Sintra challenges Chiquinho. "You're really tough, aren't you? Then kiss my crucifix if you have the guts." He took Sintra's crucifix and kissed it. When he put it in his mouth, it burned Chiquinho's mouth. He screamed so loud that they say you could hear it all over Borda da Mata, and it was a rural area. He pulls himself together and says, "Sintra, you won. But when you die, I'll come back. I'm leaving now, but I'll come back." And he left. That story became a legend in the city. Father Sintra's crucifix became the city's Jedi sword.
It's still there to this day.
It's there. It's a protective item for the city, Father Sintra's crucifix. Father Sintra passed away in 2003. Before that, in 1999, there was a renovation in the basilica, and they found the church's registry book. Everything just seemed like a legendary story of the city. But they found the record of the events because Father Sintra had to report everything to the Vatican. It's all documented. including the moment when Chiquinho introduces himself as the devil himself. Father Sintra died in 2003. After that, they start saying that Chiquinho came back, that he showed up at dances dancing with young women. The Portuguese man's family left Borda da Mata. Only one relative stayed at the farm, and they said that Chiquinho had come back. I went to Borda da Mata. I wanted to go there, see the place, and talk to the people. I arrived thinking it would be a funny story, a devil named Chiquinho. I asked around and people began avoiding me. I don't know. Everyone knows the story, but nobody wanted to tell it. At a bakery, a lady was very nice and told everything. I asked where the house was. They explained more or less. Before that, I went to the cemetery to ask Father Sintra for a blessing. A couple at the bakery said, "Your name is Thiago, right?" And they told me to go to the house where it all happened. There where the Chiquinho case happened.
It was a farmhouse.
A farmhouse. It doesn't exist anymore today. It was demolished, but I went to the farm. They told me to talk to the reverend of the church that the family used to attend. I said I didn't have time, but that I would try. I ended up not going. I went straight to the farm. It was about 4 kilometers from the city. I saw a man leaving a farm and asked where Chiquinho's house was. I asked him to describe the place where everything happened. He explained and said that I had already passed by the front several times. When you go down the slope, the trees close in and it starts to get cold. At the end, there's a gate on the left. The house was demolished, but everything happened there. I thanked him and asked if he was going now. He told me not to go because it was getting dark. He said that the police had already gone there thinking it was a thief, but left saying there was nothing. The rural police went in and left a few minutes later. Even so, I said I was just going to stop by there.
Weren't you afraid?
I didn't want to get too involved in the story. It happened exactly as he described. I went down the slope, the trees closed in, and the temperature dropped. I don't usually talk about mystical things, right? But I swear a distant voice entered my head. I recorded a video, scared to death. It was the first time I felt afraid, even though I had already been inside catacombs.
Did you hear a voice?
I didn't exactly hear it. It was like a thought entering my head.
But you insisted.
I insisted.
Do you think it was Chiquinho?
I hope not. I had my Chaguinha's rosary with me.
Yeah.
When things got serious, I put the rosary in the car. I put Chaguinha's there and said, I can handle it.
Let's take a breather.
Let's go.
Let's go to the second act.
Let's go.
Then let's go. Stay on this side here.
This one.
It's your side. It's your microphone. I love this decoration.
I loved it.
In the second act, the conversation is more relaxed and we eat something. Let's thank our partner who always sends us wonderful cheeses and cold cuts.
I loved it. Do you want to drink some water?
Do you want to have some wine?
I don't drink. I quit in 2016.
Grape juice?
Water is fine just to go along.
There's orange juice too.
Whatever you bring is great.
Whatever you want. That works for me. I wanted to understand something. Are you a lawyer?
I am.
Are you still one?
Yes.
In which field?
Today I work with bidding processes at a foundation here in São Paulo.
Is visiting cemeteries a hobby?
It is a hobby. It's a hobby. It's a hobby, but it's getting a little more serious.
What do you mean it's getting serious?
Because it makes me really want to know more and puts me in a place that I love, which is not knowing anything. What motivates me is this urge to learn more things, hear more stories, and live more experiences. The cemetery seems like a static place, but every day the scenery changes. Every day there are new experiences.
And you take different people.
Absolutely. Taking people is a communication strategy to show that this place is very interesting. But I do a lot of research on my own. The cemeteries where I work are places I know very well.
You think you're alone.
I think I'm alone.
You think you're alone? But there are some souls around you.
I hope so. I believe so, but I don't know how. The atmosphere is often somber because the greatest mystery of life is death. That fear is an important asset for us. Fear is not something terrible, it's an intelligent sensor to preserve existence.
Do you have some cheese?
Man, it's delicious. I think fear is an asset, but I'm not afraid to go at night. I do research and I'm not hesitant to go to visit cemeteries.
But did Chiquinho scare you when you went there?
That was the only time I truly felt afraid.
What did you think was going to happen?
I don't know. Something happened while I was filming Chiquinho's video. I do everything by myself, so I brought a tripod. I visited the basilica's front where there's a beautiful bust of Father Sintra. While I was recording, an old man showed up. He said, "You're talking about Chiquinho, right?" I answered, "No, I'm not." He laughed and left. It was really weird. That's the thing about Chiquinho. Everything was weird. Especially that last part. When someone goes through an experience like that, it sounds very natural. It's not someone from the internet telling a ghost story. It's something intimate, almost like a real danger. Something that really happened. Life goes on, but he's still out there. He is out there, yes. Here now, I hope not. I hope not.
Do you think Chiquinho is lurking around?
I think he's always after a good offer. The devil is always after a good offer.
Are you listening? Who could be calling at this hour?
Whoa, that's crazy.
If I answer, do you think that's a problem?
I think so.
Let it ring.
Let it ring. There's a phone story, man.
I'll answer it.
Then go ahead.
First time I've ever been scared. Hello?
It's Chiquinho. Hand the phone to him.
It's a collect call.
It's for you.
Hello, do you think I can't hear you?
You just won't leave me alone, huh? Got too much free time on your hands?
I heard everything. You were talking about me.
Yeah, I did, but come on. Chiquinho, give it a rest. That's enough. I promise I won't come back anymore.
You said he was everywhere, and he appeared.
Everywhere. I figured he was around here.
I know where to find you, Thiago. I know your ways.
I know, but go find something else to do. Turn that off. Bye, Chiquinho. Thanks.
You came after Chiquinho, and Chiquinho came after you.
It's a burden, right?
Did you dream about Chiquinho?
I never dreamed.
It was as if a voice suddenly appeared.
It felt worse in my head than in my ear. It was strange.
I don't want to hear that, no. What I heard here, I already didn't like.
It was the strangest experience I've had in this whole process. Visiting the cemetery at night was odd.
Let's change the subject to forget about this. I was asking you about being a lawyer and about this new activity. What are these visits for?
I don't think you can call it a profession yet. It's starting to become one.
Can you make a living from that?
No,
Doesn't it pay the bills?
it doesn't pay. But that's okay. I have a relationship with this as something that is a great passion. I don't want to put that burden now. I want to let it go, see how far it goes without forcing it. I'm a carnival composer, so sometimes I get tired of playing around with things. I'm speaking respectfully.
What do you mean you get tired of playing around?
You said to me, "Is that it? I think I've reached my limit." So I used to take part in a lot of samba school tryouts, for example.
Has your samba ever been in the parade?
Yes, I have. How many? In São Paulo, 8. Special group,
Which school?
Dragões da Real, and there are some I don't sign, so I can't say. But I have 6 with Dragões da Real. I have many sambas with Moro da Casa Verde, including this year's about Santo Antonio de Batalha. I have a Perola Negra here in Vila Madalena and a Cidade Unida da Muca. I took Chaguinhas to be the theme at Mocidade Unida when it was in the Access group. Look at that. Imperador do Ipiranga. Lava Pés, which is the oldest school in São Paulo. There are several other schools.
Did all these sambas on the avenue come from you?
They've reached the avenue and were in those schools.
Do you compose with anyone else? Samba is always a partnership. I mean, samba enredo.
Always.
There's an explanation.
I'm a lyricist, so I don't have any musical performance skills. I don't know how to play. I even have some intuitive melodic ideas when I write lyrics, but it's really just intuitive. So I have my friends who are real musicians, great partners. And Tigrão is my partner. Celso Inhumodi, Rodrigo Atração, Darlan Alves, and many others that I won't mention so I don't forget anyone, but they are dear friends. And Leo do Cavaco. There are a lot of great people on the top shelf of carnival artists. I have some unforgettable sambas for the carnival crowd.
You're going to sing me an obvious one, right? What's your big samba, your biggest hit?
There are 2 sambas. The samba enredo is especially memorable, which is it's very well remembered in those last decades. It hasn't even been a decade yet. It will be in 2027 for the 70 years of the song Asa Branca. It's really nice to have a very necessary tribute to this song. And we were the runners-up at the São Paulo Carnival with this samba.
How does the chorus go? After you eat, you say that. What year was it?
2017.
What was the name of the plot?
I think it's Asa Branca's 70th anniversary.
Just move a little closer to get more of the microphone.
70 years of Asa Branca.
Especially because you're going to sing, you need to get closer.
I'm going to sing. Come dance Faro, and the accordion player will play a samba in the form of a prayer. I am Dragões. It's Asa Branca inspiring generations. I lost track of time here.
And how do you mix? How do you bring together a lawyer with us? But to better understand how you combine all these activities.
Some, like making samba, only happen at certain times of the year. That's right.
Yeah.
Parade samba, yes. We have a period there between May and at most August. That's when we make the sambas. I stopped participating in samba enredo contests. This year I made one. the samba from Moro da Casa Verde and one for a city.
You stopped because...
I got tired.
But do you do it when you're invited?
Nowadays, I do it when I'm invited. I love doing it. But I don't take part in qualifiers anymore because I'm lazy and because of the money, because it's expensive.
But you were born into this samba universe.
My grandfather was a samba musician, but that became clear when I moved to São Paulo from Campinas in 2006. That desire came out later. Man, I'm eating a lot. I ate. No problem.
You're talking about money, really, because it's expensive to do.
A lot.
Why?
Because it's not just the samba. You make the samba and you have to throw a party to present it.
It's up to the samba musicians.
Exactly. You have to hire a singer, make a recording, and then perform it at the samba school. Samba resembles a music contest. So everything
Everything paid by you.
we pay not knowing if we'll win. When you win, it's wonderful. When you lose everything. Today, a winning samba brings in about 80,000 reais, but you easily spend about 20,000. 20 something.
Complicated, huh?
To win, you spend. If we do it with 10 people, each one puts in 2,000.
Each one puts in 2,000.
Sometimes 2,500 or 3,000. It depends on the competition. You have to pay the crowd to go.
Nothing is natural.
No. You see everyone singing, but it's all rehearsed.
And the cemetery part you do in your spare time as a lawyer.
Exactly.
On weekends at night.
We always go out on weekends. Sometimes I go out on a Thursday night, but usually it's on the weekend. And research also takes time. October and November are usually bad for research. Because I like to hear stories. Because the trip, it's a moment in our project. I really like making books. I like writing. I really like thinking about public policies. So we have 4 laws that I helped write.
For the preservation of heritage in the cemetery.
Cultural funerary, 1 has been approved and 2 in Campinas have also been approved. This is the first law in Brazil that recognizes the importance of the funerary cultural heritage of a municipality, which is from my city,
Campinas.
Campinas. We also passed a law that renamed the municipal funeral home at the Amarais Cemetery to Our Lady of the Conception Cemetery of Campinas, which is a public cemetery. That's where the main section is and where Mrs. Laudelina de Campos Melo is buried, who was a very important leader of the black community and a great advocate, Brazil's top symbol of domestic worker advocacy. She wasn't from Campinas. She was born in Poços de Caldas, but she died in Campinas, was buried there, and was somewhat forgotten in the Amarais Cemetery. And our way of being, to point out her presence in the cemetery, it was the suggestion to name the municipal funeral home at the cemetery after her, so Laudelina de Campos Melo Funeral Home. Exactly to indicate and highlight her presence in the cemetery, totally connected with her message, a people's cemetery. So we have 2 more laws, one in São Paulo with the same scope as the one in Campinas. It's a law that seeks the recognition and preservation of the funerary cultural heritage of the city of São Paulo. And we also have one at the federal level, which has already passed through the Culture Committee of the Chamber of Deputies. It's now in the Committee on Constitution and Justice of the Chamber of Deputies with the same scope, but each one has a different date. Campinas uses the founding date of the oldest municipal cemetery still in operation, which is the Saudade Cemetery. The one in São Paulo, the milestone will be the founding date of the Cemetery of the Afflicted, October 3rd, 1775. And the federal one is based on the birthday of a great researcher, Professor Clarivaldo Prado Valadares. So it's September 26th, that's going to be the date of it. He was the greatest researcher and a pioneer in the study of funerary art in Brazil, and also a great artist, Clarival do Prado. So it's going to be his birthday. I like that. I like to think about everything, the outing. Actually, I say that what I want most is to be able to train people. Professionals, tour guides, teachers, and others interested in these activities. So I don't have to do it anymore because I want to do something else. I'm happy, I like it, I go with joy, but my desire is to do it in other cities. I've already done it in Santos, I've already done it in Piracicaba. We tried to change the culture, which is a harder task than organizing a ride. The ride is just a tool.
After all this, are you going to become the Minister of Cemeteries?
I hope so, as long as Chiquinho can't follow me or torment me.
Yeah? I was going to ask if you know how to tell scary stories because the name of the project is what haunts you. And you also haunt people.
I try to tell them.
Tell them.
I tell them, of course.
Do you tell ghost stories?
That's what there is the most of.
I'd like to propose this to you in the third act. I wanted to see if you can scare me.
I'll try.
You can.
More than Chiquinho, I think it's hard, but he already did one.
Chiquinho already scared us once, but do you have any ghost stories?
I do.
Tell me.
I'll tell you a famous one. Hey, what's with all this luxury? I'm not used to this, no.
It's not good after all we've discussed. It's just like this. When we were kids.
I love this place. It's nice, right?
Good idea. I never do this. When I was a kid, we used to play. The idea is for us not to look at each other, but to look inside, to travel within. You can close the other one if you want.
Wow, that's cool.
My friend's game when we were kids was to scare each other. We used to get ready for it. In a building hallway, we'd put up candles, masks, and scare someone. Before that, we'd tell a story to prepare the person. And that used to scare me a lot. I was terrified. When I heard about your project, What Haunts You, I thought you took people to scare them, but you don't actually scare them.
Yeah.
The scare.
It's a fear you agree to, the scare from a ghost. People want to be scared. The scariest part is when the story touches on an undeniable reality. For example, have you heard about it? What is the most famous ghost story in the world? Ghost story?
In Brazil?
Look over there.
The Phantom of the Opera came to mind, the Broadway play, there's a movie and everything, but in Brazil?
I don't know, maybe the bathroom blonde.
The Bathroom Blonde is well known.
Do you know her real story?
No.
The lady in the bathroom was named Maria Augusta de Oliveira Borges. She was the daughter of the Viscount of Guaratinguetá. The marriage was arranged by Count de, husband of Princess Isabel, with Francisco Antonio Dutra Rodriguez. Councillor Dutra, who even became governor of the state of São Paulo. So the bathroom blonde was married to a governor of the state of São Paulo. What happened to Maria Augusta?
The Bathroom Blonde married the governor?
That's right, I love real life facts. Maria Augusta was forced to get married at 14 years old. He was 34, already considered old for that time. She didn't want to get married and waited for an opportunity to get out of it until she realized that chance had come. When her father died, she sold the jewelry, went to France, and ran away from the marriage. It was a scandal at court. Counselor Dutra was quite a catch besides being the emperor's advisor.
Counselor Dutra, the highway's namesake. It's not President Dutra.
No, no, no. Counselor Dutra isn't President Dutra, though he was president of São Paulo province, which was like being governor then. So she is convinced to come back to dissolve this marriage, returns to Brazil, ends the marriage, but goes back to France and unfortunately ends up contracting rabies and dies in France. Her body is embalmed, brought to Brazil, and she ends up coming back dead. After being embalmed, she is placed in the house where her mother lived, widowed and alone in the largest house in Guaratinguetá, the mansion of the Viscounts of Guaratinguetá. She is not buried immediately. She remains on display in one of the rooms. The room was probably a bedroom or a space she used to frequent because it had her piano, personal items, and she stayed there in a glass dome. And they say that the first apparitions happened right there.
Since the body was on display, the spirit would appear.
Exactly. She would knock on that glass dome and ask for water. Why? Because rage causes hydrophobia, so the person feels thirsty but can't drink water. Maybe that's where her contact with bathrooms began, but let's move on. She appears in a dream to her mother, asking to be buried because she couldn't stand being exposed anymore, and her mother buries her in the cemetery.
The mother was already older.
She was older, but not as much as the father. She was, according to her marriage to Chico, the painter who was the Viscount of Guaratinguetá, but she was a little older. The mother buries her, stays alone in the house, and decides to sell the property. And who had money to buy a mansion? Only the state. She sells it to the state of São Paulo. The mansion is turned into a school by the state, so the Viscount's mansion becomes a public school. In 1916,
In which city was that?
Guaratinguetá, everything happens there. In 1916, there's a fire at that school. They blame Maria Augusta. There was already an atmosphere of her presence in the place. But the defining story of the contact with Maria Augusta inside that school, it's about two students who skip class, sneak into an auditorium with a piano that belonged to Maria Augusta, lock themselves inside, everything's dark, until a beam of light shines on the piano and it starts playing by itself. The boys get desperate, run out, and tell everyone what they experienced. And from then on, other stories of Maria Augusta's apparitions start to appear. Until a principal, annoyed by the staff and teachers refusing to work at night, schedules a meeting to put an end to this story. When he's about to start the meeting, a chandelier falls on his table. That was it. There were no more night classes. Since then, other reports have emerged about sightings of Maria Augusta. The most curious thing is that this initial story ended up inspiring several other stories about the blonde in the bathroom.
How did she get called the blonde in the bathroom from the beginning?
So when was that? First of all, that's a contradiction because Maria Augusta was a redhead, not a blonde. Second, she didn't initially appear in the bathroom. She was seen and heard in the hallways. But I imagine she moved to the bathroom because she needed something that involved water. She could have gone to the kitchen, but the bathroom was more available, and then a recipe came up. If you want to summon the blonde of the bathroom, it's simple. Go to the bathroom. It has to be a stall. It can't be a urinal. You lock yourself in the stall, pull out a hair, toss it in the toilet, flush, and curse. Do this 3 times, go to the mirror and call, blonde of the bathroom, blonde of the bathroom, blonde of the bathroom. And if you believe, she will appear. She'll turn on all the faucets and then appear to you. looking like a mummified person. That's why she appeared with cotton in her nose and that cadaverous look, because she was embalmed. It wasn't scary.
Have you seen it?
No.
Have you ever seen the bathroom blonde or tried that ritual?
No. I'm saving my hair. I'm going bald. I don't have any more hair to waste calling the blonde.
You really like Chiquinho, right?
I don't like him, man, but he gets on my nerves. You have no idea.
Man, so many cool stories. I admit I never paid much attention to stories about cemetery miracle workers. I had heard about one or another, but I had never realized how big this whole universe was.
And the ghost stories, too.
That too, right?
Ghost stories are immediate translations of great traumas, individual or collective tragedies. We get very precise diagnoses of communities from the stories they tell, almost involuntarily. A supernatural account contains many fragments that form a community, from prejudices, for example, about the role of women in a society. This is fundamental for a ghost bride to exist. If no one believed that a woman's purpose was to get married, there would never be a ghost bride. You've never heard of a ghost groom, because it was never thought that the purpose of a man's life was to get married. There are many stories connected to slavery because it's still an open wound.
Of course.
Each city doesn't just have the ghost story it deserves, but the one it cultivates. If you don't solve your problems, they go to another world.
And that's everyone's greatest haunting.
O Que Te Assombra was born from that, because I thought that stories were scarier because of the tragedies that preceded them, even more than by the supernatural phenomena themselves.
Did you notice this image?
I'm even getting goosebumps. Who is it?
My great aunt.
Really? Still a little baby?
She died at that age?
Wow.
She died of typhoid fever. This photo used to hang on the living room wall at my grandmother's house. It was the symbol of the house. They never took it down, as if it were a cemetery tomb.
Post-mortem photos are very misunderstood, but they are demonstrations of affection and care. People think it's creepy, but they forget that taking photos used to be very expensive. Many people lived their whole lives without any photographic record. The post-mortem photo was the last chance to keep an image of a loved one, a great demonstration of affection.
But there was something morbid about staying in the living room, right? Someone died decades ago. And for me, there was something kind of
Ghostly.
as if there was a tomb present in the room all the time.
The constant reminder of death is interesting. Depending on your perspective, we treat death as a curse. As something that causes envy in those who are still alive. I see that a lot. There was so much that died. You have to enjoy life. I don't know if that comes from certain deep dives in religious cultures. The Franciscans are incredible in that aspect. St. Francis called death Sister Death. because it promoted the encounter with the divine. It wasn't something negative. Maybe the way we live, more focused on consumerism, ends up restricting our feelings. The idea of satisfying yourself with life through the ability to consume the moment, right? Now. It has to be, it has to be now. And I think that people in the past, maybe because they didn't have so many technological tools, were able to see everything in a more peaceful way, right? As if that's why your grandmother's photo was there, because people like to remember her even though she had passed away.
Yeah, but I only say that because it was Christmas, birthdays, everything. And then there was a memory of a person I always thought about, you know? As a child, maybe it was a sad memory. But today I understand that it's not just about remembering someone who died. It can be something happy, it's a longing, a way to bring the person back to life.
Yeah, it's still about attachment. If we lose someone we care about, obviously we're going to miss them. The person will be missed. But if you build a lot of bonds and memories, those memories kind of become a lifeline. Because there's the sadness of absence, but there's also this little box of joy, of happiness that comes from memory. There are many people who feel fulfilled for having lived, for having had the privilege of spending time with loved ones. It's like asking, would you rather never have had it or experienced it even if you lost it later? Was it better to have never met your son, your daughter, your grandmother? No, it was better to have known them, even though you miss them a lot now. I tell my daughter, my youngest daughter never met my mother in law, and she loves my grandmother because we only share good things. My mother in law was an amazing person. She died young of cancer, and my daughter really likes her. She jokes, Grandma Regina. She talks as if she has a deep bond built from the experiences we share with her. So she has an emotional connection with her grandmother who has already passed away.
Goodbye, my friend. Thank you for sharing your stories. It was nice.
It was really cool.
Your perspective on death.
Damn, what is that?
Different, authentic,
Ah, thank you.
and provocative, right?
Thanks a lot.
It makes you think. Thanks a lot. Thank you, man.
Thank you. It was really good. Really good indeed.
Before you go, I just want to tell you something.
Do I really have to leave?
You don't have to. You don't have to. But I wanted to tell you this. Here's the thing. Take it with you.
Man, all right. What a task, huh? Don't worry, I'll do it. Take it. I don't know why, but I think you should take this.
All right.
It's so nice here, man. This is great.
May God be with you.
You're leaving with that blessed look on your face, huh? You became a believer. You talked about miracle workers, cemeteries, a church in Italy, even about that Carlo Acutis guy. You said that to see if you'd scare me off, right?
Chiquinho, what do you want to leave?
There's only one way, man. Here's the riddle. Lay flowers on an empty tomb with an incorrupt body.
Incorrupt body, empty tomb. A girl, Isildinha, of course. But why the girl Isildinha?
One day I'll come back to explain it to you, Thiago.